I imagine most of you already know this, but in the case anyone doesn't, Valorant's esports scene is split into 3 tiers. Tier 1 being the highest with VCT, aka Valorant Champions Tour, ranging all the way down to Tier 3. Which represents an area of leagues where upcoming players gain experience and growth within their respective teams. These leagues can be run by any individual, as long as they get the license and confirmation from Riot. Albeit, as Riot themselves don't have full control of the person running the league, it has led to organization owners stealing the prize money, scamming their staff, and disappearing as if they were never there. That's how we reached the Valiant esports community, which we'll refer to by its acronym, VEC. VEC was a league that ran seasonal Tier 3 competitive Valorant matches for less-known teams to show their skills and battle for prize money. At the same time, anyone interested in gaining experience as a staff or production member could also join along to help out.
Through already halfway there, and CreeperCon gets it. The wallbang's not coming through. One headshot and second for Bishops, as I believe he gets it just in time. Yes, there it is.
Not only did the league disappear, but any money owed to the teams and staff members would be gone alongside it. As you may or may not know, I am not the largest fan of scams. I doubt anyone is. So, without further ado, let's go over VEC, the league that vanished without a trace. Now, from my side, I have worked with VEC, but I was mostly on the side as a semi-active caster, to which I confess, I wasn't too involved with the league or the people inside it, but I still did offer my services every now and then. And I didn't know Serge, who was the owner of VEC, nor can I find his messages with me, assuming he deleted his Discord account. So, why am I making this video? It's less about my personal experience, but of those who were truly affected, as this is one of many situations which shouldn't be forgotten, especially with how deep the rabbit hole goes. I'll just quickly introduce all the involved individuals so you can have an easier time connecting everything. istg was an early player of VEC that worked his way up to a caster and observer role, and later earning the senior admin title. Then we have Jazz, who was also an early senior admin that stuck throughout the majority of VEC, similarly to Kermi, who was another senior admin. We have a lot of those, with Kermi also being VEC's first caster. Later came around Tangerine as a producer and observer, with Atomic Pasta 2 working as an observer. These are the people that helped me understand the situation and bring light upon it, with the entire approach starting with a post on X, or Twitter, call it whatever you want. Shortly after VEC's disappearance, Tangerine tweeted an announcement of his hard work put into VEC and how everything poofed into thin air without a warning. I gave my own take with it, which was quickly followed by a Discord message from istg, a senior admin of VEC who reached out offering any details about what happened in the case I had any plans of making a video about it. Which gave me a good idea. Ironically enough, it was to make a video about it. So we continued our conversation, with Galaxify linking me to another senior admin, Kermi. Conversing with Kermi then connected me to Jazz and Atomic Pasta. I then also reached out to Tangerine, whose tweet began the charge, and after hearing everyone's perspective, I found myself back in 2024, the beginning of VEC. Jazz joined VEC as a senior admin, who throughout this whole situation contributed to the league majorly, as she helped pretty much wherever and whenever she could. At around the same time, Kermi too had his entrance as VEC's first caster, later being promoted to moderator and then a senior admin. Jazz and Kermi were tasked with navigating the production team and making sure all the stream days were covered. Later, they would be too joined by Galaxify, who was working up the ranks and in December offered a helping hand as a fellow senior admin. Unknowingly, that position was paid, and to Jazz's surprise, she was asked for her PayPal by Tanthin and paid by Surge in December. According to Kermi, the payment was £75 for every split, an agreement that held its weight even before Tanthin's leave. Now, I mentioned Tanthin. That's a name many inside the scene might recognize, but for those who don't, let me provide some context. In the earlier days of VEC, Surge was the owner, but not alone. He was also accompanied by Tanthin, a co-founder. After some time of Vex activity, an unknown individual introduced early drama into the league by publishing very serious allegations against Tanthin, with claims that he leaked his private parts to minors and staff. Accompanied by those allegations were supposed clips showing Tanthin being racist and sexist, which forced Surge to remove him for reputation purposes, joined by the following announcement. This is one of the hardest messages I've ever had to write. The events that led to this decision revolve around social media interactions that caught public attention. After allegations surfaced on Twitter, I conducted an investigation. Sadly, I have to confirm that the claims about inappropriate behavior were true. Tanthin was involved in sharing explicit content on camera with others. Surge here didn't have much of a choice but to remove Tanthin, as he confirmed all the allegations within his post. Albeit, when Galaxify reached out to me about this video, he did mention Tanthin being a close friend of his and the allegations being false. If Galaxify is biased or not doesn't matter, since he didn't stop by only telling me the allegations were false. He backed up Tanthin's innocence with following messages from Surge himself, which never reached the public eye. One of them being Surge's statement on releasing a formal apology to Tanthin after the end of the split. At first is the confirmation that there is no evidence to back up what Tanthin was accused of. This is where Surge continues explaining how himself and Tanthin shared dark humor, which is something Tanthin regrets doing in front of people that he didn't know all too well, which I agree with. You should keep dark humor to only those you know will not be affected and you hold close, especially when you have a position Tanthin did inside VEC. Although, for the two owners, the jokes were all jest. Nothing too serious, just dark humor which wasn't meant to harm anybody. On the other hand is the exposure of Tanthin's private parts. Here it's mentioned Tanthin only exposed himself to Surge, with no minors involved and even Tanthin's girlfriend being present, as it was all done for a reaction. Brilliant. However, within the VEC Discord, clips of Tanthin were displayed where he shared his dark humor, which led to accusations of him being a PDF file that spread throughout the server and onto Twitter through a burner account sharing the claims. These claims were supported by threads and a short compilation of clips taken out of context, where Tanthin says some questionable things. I'll let you have a look.
You guys just couldn't take it from Zinger.
Oh, you could take it though, couldn't you? Go back to the game.
He's 17. He's ready for the cream. Sorry.
For fuck's sake, man.
You're so pretty, Prey.
Beautiful.
I'm not even looking at you. I'm just thinking about you naked, stroking it.
Some users even added fuel to the fire by contributing to the drama, which was denied by both Tanthin and Surge at first, according to Galaxify, with Surge then later switching sides and saying Tanthin was at fault. This, however, is defended by the fact that everyone inside the clips were in fact not underage and just some friends messing about. Overall, Surge still removed him, which led to a Twitter statement of Tanthin's defending his case, which has a mention that all this came down to anonymous allegations with no circumstantial evidence. Even after asking for evidence, none was provided and Surge still removed Tanthin without a warning or contact. Legal action also reached a point in this post, as it all ended with Tanthin's statement mentioning he was owed over £1,000 in total, with 800 of those being from a contractual obligation. This continues to a conversation within Galaxify's Discord DMs, where Surge does confirm that the money is still owed, also bringing up that he has a family to pay for. Albeit the money here is not connected to VEC, but a previous organization called Dark Horse Esports. Now, being open-minded about this, as much as Surge might be in the wrong here about not being in contact with anyone about Tanthin's removal and not clearing his name of any false allegations, we have to keep something in context. Although Tanthin's dark humor and his reveal of private parts was supposedly only to close friends and that no one should have gotten offended by it, whoever the anonymous individual is that leaked this information was clearly offended in one way or another, and Tanthin's removal was not a solo decision. After the whole Tanthin drama, VEC was now fully under Surge's ownership, which led to many issues as stated by Kermi. He has absolutely zero clue on how to actually host a tournament. He would constantly make decisions without informing anyone of the staff, ignore our requests, and keep doing what he thought was best, even though he had no clue what he was actually doing. This was all under VEC's first split. since the league was split into splits. I'm sorry for making this confusing, but that was all that happened in the first one. The second split was a VEC charity event, with Jazz taking over Tanthin's role of creating graphics and essentially helping out every day in one way or another, according to her. The majority of staff included went unpaid for their work, which was something they complied with due to this being a charity event. The one individual that did join right before the charity matches was Atomic Pasta, who was promised £50, which Surge paid 40 of, and since it was a charity event, Pasta didn't mind too much. The event was called VEC X Shout, and all the money that was raised from it never gained confirmation if the payment reached the charity, which we can only hope it did. The third split followed with Tangerine also joining in around that time, which in combination with Pasta offered up a great help to Jazz when it came down to making designs. From Pasta's experience, he was tasked with creating graphics while also observing, keeping in mind that both were paid positions. Throughout the split, Pasta states that it seemed as if himself and Surge got close and gained respect for each other. This was also followed up with Pasta being added as the social media manager so he could send posts more freely. With the third split coming to an end, Pasta was close with everyone inside the staff team, Surge included. But there was a missing piece: the payment. Surge told Pasta that his finances were tight and that his payment wouldn't come around until payday itself, but was still asking Pasta to advertise the following split so they could get as many teams involved as possible. Pasta did so while also completing side jobs that were compensated for, and the payment from the previous split of £80 was agreed upon, with only half of it being the last that Pasta would ever receive. He did ask for the second half of his owed money, which would be declined due to Surge having health issues alongside his job reducing work hours. Now, just to take a step back, Surge at many moments mentioned his health issues. This was due to him supposedly having liver failure, which also resulted in surgeries, costs, and conflicts with his job and family alike. Now, as much as I want to, I can't back this up with concrete proof, nor do I expect that Surge would ever feel the need to provide it. But after asking some staff about the legitimacy of his claims, everyone seems to believe Surge's health issues were real. So take it as you will. Returning to the topic, before the next split was introduced, Kermie, the senior admin, began considering leaving VEC due to Surge making drastic changes without informing him or other senior admins. He then began reaching out for payment, which was received after a bunch of convincing and effort that was apparently the norm for compensation at VEC. Surge did offer Kermie less money at first, but in the end it came through fully, as what followed were budget cuts. That included cutting Kermie out of the team even though he already put work into the upcoming split. The removal of a senior admin and the end of the previous split also sparked curiosity within Jazz, as in where her payment might be. Did Surge forget about her? Jazz began contacting other staff who have been paid in partial if not full, and this understandably upset her because she has put in a major amount of work into VEC. Getting in contact with him, she was assured payment would come through, as it was delayed due to Surge taking some time off because of his surgeries. And Jazz felt bad, not wanting to look like a money-hungry asshole by asking for payment when Surge in this case was clearly in a rough and poor state. This poor state then transitioned into a slow beginning of VEC's end. What followed would be the final season, the fourth split, called Summer Showdown. In the preparations for it, Tangerine and others also began asking for payment, which Surge would only be able to compensate in half since he spent too much money on holiday. But as Surge has paid staff in the past, everyone trusted him to follow up on his word, with the only issue being the reality that Surge hasn't paid everyone just yet. Around a similar time, Surge mentioned the Summer Showdown being VEC's final season due to people losing interest, which was, according to Tangerine, far from the truth as teams were constantly creating tickets to play in the league. No follow-up was made on a final decision if VEC would end or not, as the Summer Showdown continued on as usual. At the same time, the senior admins Kizzle and Jazz weren't being communicated with. Surge rather made decisions on his own without consulting them all up until his health worsened, which resulted in the broadcasts and streams being stopped. A slow breakdown of VEC was on full display, as everything was slowly turning to dust, but hope was not yet given up. Someone was found to help out with the production so the streams could continue just without Surge in the picture. But as time went on, communication with Surge got even worse, and it led to many messages needing days for a response or just straight up being ignored. Persisting through, it was still unclear about where the payment might be, as it's been lurking from the 3rd and 4th split, which at that point Surge had apparently lost his job and was trying to figure things out. Same like before, this is a horrible situation, and as much as I want to provide the evidence, there is none, besides the positive reinforcement from the staff. The grand final was played and the summer showdown ended. Boars Gaming were the winners, and after a season of victories, they looked to claim the first place prize money of £350. In total, each team paid an entry fee of £25. With 32 teams, that would make a total of £800 overall that lied inside Surge's PayPal or bank account. The prize pool was £500, with the rest of the money set aside for casters, observers, and staff. But none of that money was ever seen. Teams were tagging and reaching out, having staff do the same, with the only response being cold, dead silence. And that sudden silence was broken up by what no one had expected. The accounts of Vec had been deleted, along was the Discord server, with anyone involved being blocked by Surge in an instant. Teams such as Boars, Valiant, Legacy, and Plus Vibe would never get what they fought for inside the Summer Showdown. With the server and accounts, the prize money and any compensation for the work put in by staff was also gone. Out of the mentioned people though, many also share different experiences with Surge, such as Pasta, who held a high amount of respect with Surge, stating he was very understanding and reasonable, even consoling Pasta and being there for him when mental struggles came around. On the other hand, Kermi had a night and day switch of how he saw Surge, that being only as a co-worker and not much else. Mentioning that communication with Surge has always been horrible. That includes leaving out information, deadlines not being set, large changes on short notice, and Surge butting into tickets that were being handled. Overall, it was a very disjointed and uncomfortable environment that was only held together by the hard work of the senior admins due to Surge not having much knowledge on how to run a tournament. Now, as for the reason Surge left, it could have very possibly been due to losing his job, where he was on medical leave in the recent years, which put him in a hospital and behind a dialysis machine regularly. Or maybe it was due to legal reasons that were brought up in Tanthin's statement. Now, we can speculate all we want, but as for now, there is no confirmation. And just like that, Vec was a tier 3 league within Valorant that vanished without a trace, and we might never get an answer as to why. Surge had full control over it, meaning everything was his decision, and that included not paying staff and players alike. Whatever his excuse may be, no apology or explanation has been given till this day, nor has there been any payment to my knowledge. And so it's covered. Now I apologize if everything was all around the place, as I did try my best to create a timeline of everyone's perspective. As for the staff, many were still affected, and it's slowly becoming an issue within Valorant's Tier 3 system, with many organizations disappearing or being steeped into deep controversy. But to not leave on a negative note, the one league that has kept a good reputation from what I've been able to gather is EVC. So I only hope that their good reputation is kept, as the scene really needs it. Working hard just for your promised money to disappear is a horrible feeling, and even though Surge had his own issues, this wasn't the right way of going about it. Liver failure and losing your job while having a family is extremely rough, but it doesn't cover the lack of professionalism and vanishing without a single message, as it only leaves a scummy impression. As for the rest, while Vec may not have been the most professional organization stated by staff themselves, you always need to be sure everyone is comfortable with the actions you do and words you say. For that exact same reason, I must clarify that I was given full consent to share all this information from the staff that helped me with this video. I will also be leaving their socials down in the description in case you'd be as kind as to check them out and drop a follow. For those watching, yes, I'm talking to you, I would appreciate it if you can share this video so awareness can be spread about situations like the one covered in today's video. If you enjoy this type of content, do let me know by subscribing, liking, and commenting what you think about today's topic. While you're at that, I would rather not waste any more of your time, so I do hope you have a great, and I mean great, rest of your day.